introduce our topic, the Sabah Water Department scandal, often called Sabah Watergate, stands as one of Malaysia's most notorious institutional corruption cases. Uncovered by the MACC in 2016 during the Ops Water, the probe revealed that the top officials systematically siphoned roughly RM3.3 billion in federal funds meant for critical rural water infrastructure. Instead of reaching undeserved communities, an estimated 16% of the budget was funneled into a network of proxy companies. The initial rates yielded a record-breaking RM114 million in seized assets, including millions in cash stuffed in safe. This multi-year legal battle culminated in May 2026 with the landmark money laundering conviction of the former director, who received an 8-year prison sentence and a massive RM284.3 million fine.
Next is a timeline of Sabah Water Department scandal, which is one of Malaysia's largest public corruption cases. The scandal began between 2010 and 2016, where the federal government allocated approximately RM3.3 billion for rural water infrastructure projects in Sabah. These funds were meant to improve access to clean water for communities across the state. On 4 October 2006, the Malaysia Anti-Corruption Commission or MACC launched Ops Water after receiving allegations of corruption. The department directors and deputy director were arrested for allegedly accepting kickbacks from contractors involved in this project. Just 2 days later, on 6 October 2006, MACC assessed approximately RM114 million in cash, along with luxury vehicle, jewelry, branded handbag, and other valuable assets. At the time, this was the largest cash ledger in MACC history. Later, in October 2006, the investigation expanded, leading to the arrest of additional officials and engineering suspected of participating in the corruption scheme. On 29 December 2006, 3 main suspects were formally charged with the corruption and money laundering offense. The trial continued for several years because of the larger amount of financial evidence and the number of witnesses involved. Finally, in May 2026, the former Sabah Water Department director was convicted on multiple money laundering charges and sentenced to imprisonment and substantial fines.
Key individuals in the Sabah Water Department scandal: Awang Muhammad Tahir, Awang Muhammad Talib, the former director. He acted as the central mastermind of the corruption ring by establishing a centralized collection scheme to systematically scheme a mandatory 10.75% kickback submission from federal water infrastructure funds. The legal outcome: the Special Corruption Court convicted him on 12 money laundering counts, sentencing him to an effective 8 years in prison and a massive 284.3 million ringgit fine. Next, Teo Chee Kong, the former deputy director, also the KK division engineer. He served as the primary coordinator and logistical runner who physically collected the cash contribution from 9 regional division engineers and distributed them internally based on a strict collection formula. The legal outcome: his 146 money laundering charges were dropped after he agreed to a plea bargain involving a $30 million ringgit compound, allowing him to serve as the prosecution's star witness. Next, the Lim Lam Beng, the former deputy director. He was heavily implicated in the foundational layout of the Graph network, specifically by helping design the initial 10.75% distribution table and allegedly possessing 2.38 million ringgit in illegal cash. The legal outcome: the Sessions Court ultimately acquitted and discharged him of all money laundering charges after ruling that the defense managed to raise reasonable doubt. Finally, Fauziah Piut, the wife of Awang Muhammad Tahir. She was pulled into the legal proceedings under anti-money laundering laws for her role in joint holding, managing, and directly benefiting from the massive hoard of unexplained wealth, luxury vehicles, and also cash seized during the raids. The legal outcome: she was fully acquitted and discharged of all charges alongside Lim Lam Beng due to a lack of explicit criminal culpability.
So in this slide, I will explain about the nature of a misconduct that happened in Sabah Water Department scandal. So there are total 6 factors on this nature of misconduct. So the first one is abuse of power. which is senior officials allegedly misused their authority by influencing the awarding of government contracts, and instead of following a fair, transparent procurement process, contracts were allegedly awarded to competitors linked to family members, friends, or any associates. And this abuse of power violated the principles of integrity, accountability, and good governance in public sector. And the second aspect is bribery and corruption. Officials were accused bribes and commission from contractors in return for approving government projects. This illegal gave certain companies an unfair advantage during the tender process, and because of this, public funds intended for water development were allegedly used for personal enrichment rather than public benefits. And the third point is money laundering. The investigation also uncovered allegation of money laundering, which is allegedly obtained money was hidden through cash holding, bank accounts, and valuable assets to conceal its origin. And during the investigation for this money laundering, the MACC, which is called it as Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, seized large amounts of cash, jewelry, luxury items, and other assets believed to be connected to this scandal. The next one is criminal breach of trust. As short name, we call it as CBT. The case also involved allegations of criminal breach of trust by public officials. Funds allocated for public water infrastructures projects were allegedly misused or dishonestly managed instead of being used for their intended purpose. So, because of this, in financial losses to the government and affected the delivery of essential public services. The fifth point is about embezzlement of public funds. The scandal involved allegation that government funds intended for water supply and infrastructure projects were diverted for personal enrichment, and instead of being used to improve water services, the funds were allegedly misappropriated by those entrusted with managing them. This contributed to delays in project implementation and negatively affected communities that rely on these essential services. And last but not least is about procurement fraud. The investigation revealed allegations of irregularities in the procurement process. Officials allegedly manipulated contract awards by favoring certain contractors and bypassing fair and transparent tender procedures. This action may have led to inflated project costs and reduced value for public spending.
The Sabah Watergate investigation began with a simple question from angry communities. Why were there constant water shortages when massive federal funds had been allocated? Anonymous complaint poured in, but suspicion alone wasn't enough. MACC needed proof. Using intelligence-based investigation, officers planted operatives inside the water department. They traced financial footprints and mapped connections between individuals and companies. What they uncovered was staggering. A network of 38 proxy companies existed only on paper. They invoiced for pipes, materials, and studies that were never delivered. Around 60% of project funds were siphoned off as kickbacks. In total, 3.3 billion ringgit in federal allocations was compromised. The raids in October 2016 shocked the nation. Officers seized 114 million ringgit in assets, including over 53 million ringgit in cash, hidden in safes, suitcases, and walls. They found Rolex watches, 127 luxury handbags, jewelry, gold, and expensive cars. But the real cost was humans. Villages with millions allocated for clean water still relied on dirty wells and rain catchments. Children fell sick. Farmers could not work. While communities suffered without basic water, officials sat on mountains of luxury goods.
Impact of scandal. First, infrastructure deficits. Funds intended to provide clean water and basic utilities to rural Sabah were diverted. This result in substandard project implementation, leaving many areas facing prolonged water shortage. Second, severe judicial penalties. The former director of the department was convicted of money laundering in a landmark ruling handed down by the Kota Kinabalu Session Court. He was sentenced to 96 years in prison and fined over RM 284 million ringgit. Third, massive financial seizure. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, or known as SPRM, conducted record-breaking seizure of illicit wealth, including RM114.5 million ringgit in cash, luxury cars, jewelry, and land grants. And then the final is government reforms. The massive breach of trust prompted sweeping investigation into civil service integrity. State leaders have since cited the trial as a crucial lesson requiring stricter internal controls, better procurement, monitoring, and zero tolerance for corruptions.
Ethical and corporate governance analysis. Ethical issue analysis. Severe conflict of interest and betrayal of public trust. The official complete abandoned their fiduciary duty to the citizen of Sabah, prioritizing extreme personal greed over public welfare by exploiting their position to enrich their relative, directly depriving rural communities of their fundamental right to clean and reliable water. Second, corporate governance failure. Total collapse of institutional oversight. The sheer scale of the embezzlement was facilitated by the dangerous concentration of autonomous power and an opaque procurement system, which allow the director and deputy director to unilaterally bypass competitive bidding and independent audits for over 6 years without detection.
In conclusion, the Sabah Water Department scandal highlights the serious impact of corruption on public administration and essential services. The case exposed weaknesses in governance, financial oversight, and accountability, resulting in financial losses, delayed water infrastructure projects, and reduced public trust. It demonstrates the importance of transparency, ethical leadership, and strong anti-corruption measures to ensure public resources are managed responsibly and efficiently.